We have someone new among us. Rob, you guys have already met, but since this is live and it's going to be publicly viewable later on, could you, Rob, please, introduce yourself for everyone?
Hi, I'm Rob. I'm joining the conference from work today. So I've taken a little time out for my lunch break. So we've been working with Meteor here for about just over a year. I first started to play with it at about 0.5, 0.6, but really got into it, as I say, about a year ago. We're using it here to develop some B2B applications, and I'm just happy to be a member of the group.
Well, we as well, we share that sentiment, so welcome among us, and it's really nice having you around us. We are definitely, benefiting from your experience. And for everyone to know, you are not a project manager.
I am not a project manager.
No. Okay. First order of business, we all decided that we should be talking about deployment, especially deployment on our own servers, and especially deploying using our own Mongodb instances, and how to be managing that, as a production environment. So this has been a common question, and almost everyone, joined in about discussing this. So we are 2, 3, 4. Who's absent? Who is not here?
Chat.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be okay. He's not gonna be able to make it today. All right then. Right. Okay. So, okay, guys. So, does anyone have a very specific question about it, or would you like me to, share my past experiences about hosting on my own premise?
I think just a shared experience is good.
All right then. Okay. No. First of all, we have actually discussed this briefly in our first Hangout session, and we said that basically what we want to do is, if we can afford it, go with Galaxy, and if you want really easy solution. But since the prices may be a little steep for those of us who are just trying to publish our MVPs, or trying to get something just for the fun of it out there. Except for the completely free meteor.com option, there's not a really easy and straightforward solution to hosting a Meteor app. But fortunately, the community had stepped in to create their own solutions, like Arunoda, for example, with its MOP and is a cluster solution for larger use cases. And then we also have some solutions from Heroku and the likes. There are options to demeteorize Meteor applications and make them act more like a standard Node.js application. There are solutions around that. But basically, what we want to discuss today is, since a lot of you asked about it, how to use our own server, for example, on DigitalOcean or Linode or something like that, or AWS, and set that server up. Basically, making it all right to host both the application and the Mongodb instance you want to host our app there. So, first of all, my personal experience on that front is with Fusion Passenger. I have actually shared the link to Fusion Passenger's website in our first chat, right? My reasoning behind that is Fusion Passenger is actually tightly integrated with Nginx, which is a web server for your static assets. And Fusion Passenger basically acts like a solution to manage processes. So it manages the Node.js process that actually hosts a Meteor application. So when we say we want to deploy Meteor, we are actually talking about deploying a Node.js application, basically. Yes, there are some intricacies with that. Yes, there are some small differences, but basically that's it. It's a Node.js application. It's JavaScript served by its internal server. So what we want to do is put a static web server like Nginx in front of that. And I'm sure most of you have read some tutorials about that, using a static web server like Nginx or some other proxy to serve the Meteor instance on its own Node.js server, plus add something in front of it. So that we could use things like URL rewriting or distributing among many different MongoDB, Node.js or Meteor instances, or using custom domain names, etc., etc. But the thing is, I have chosen Fusion Passenger for my on-premise installation because it's tightly integrated and it has an out-of-box solution for all of this. So the first thing I'm going to do is share its documentation URL with you guys, since we all want to do some jobs on our own and learn stuff. So, okay, I've actually shared this, I think, before. Enrico says we can. Yeah, okay. We are talking about sharing some URLs here now. And people watching this later on may not be able to see those URLs. So someone, hopefully, as someone did for the past two sessions, is going to convert this into a blog post. And then include those URLs in it. So I think that's gonna be a huge problem. Okay, then we'll decide who's gonna do that later on. Okay, so Fusion Passengers library, the documentation does a great job walking you through how to set either development or production. What you want is a few options. Click on those few options. You're going to want to go with the next solution. Fusion Passenger can work either with Nginx or standalone or with Apache. But since Nginx is our go-to solution here, and the most of the literature around is based on that, it's going to be easier on you guys. So what we're going to do is follow that tutorial. Not right now. You're gonna do that on your own. Follow that library, the documentation, to briefly create a configuration, which is really straightforward. And the examples given in the documentation are complete. So once you actually read through it, you don't have to go check out any other website. It's just complete. But what you're going to be have to aware of is a few environment variables. Environment variables are what tells your application about the things that complement it, like email servers, like your database server, or the application's own URL. Those things are also set within the Fusion Passengers configuration file. The thing is, you're going to have to be aware of setting your email server. So you're going to either use Gmail's SMTP or get an SMTP service somewhere, like Mandrill or one of those services out there. And for your MongoDB instance, you're going to be using your local database, and we're going to come to that later on during this. So what it basically does is the configuration asks you a few questions. How many instances are you going to host? Would you like some of the instances to start early on, as soon as the application service starts? And it's going to do something like this. For example, you have a small website with a small number of visitors. Or a very small app, and you only need one Meteor instance, and that can serve roughly around 100, maybe a little more, concurrent users. And you're going to want just a single instance. But the beauty with Fusion Passenger is, if you want to grow beyond that, instead of using small DigitalOcean droplets like Arunoda's tutorial about MAP or all the others tell you about, you can actually use a large server, something like, I don't know, 4 gigabytes of RAM and a few CPUs, and you can utilize the complete server. I like that approach with Fusion Passenger because you never know how much CPU power or how much RAM a single instance is going to require. Therefore, statistically speaking, if your services are not all congested or flocked by users all around the world, you can basically assume that two or three predefined instances can actually serve a larger audience and share the required resources. For example, one of the instances can require lots of RAM, while the other can require lots of CPU, but not that much RAM. So basically, since not all of them are going to behave the same, the complete large server box can be utilized until it's saturated to full RAM and full CPU usage. Frankly speaking, I haven't seen too much RAM usage on my apps. So if I want to go for small apps or just play toys, I go with 512 megabytes of RAM, or calculated by 512. Or if I'm leaning towards a production app, I make sure I have something around a gigabyte per instance. For example, if I have a large application and I want to run more than 4 or 5 instances, I take a 4 gigabyte RAM box and run 4 instances on 2 CPUs. This is also interesting. People usually tend to think of it like if you have 2 CPU resources, that means you can only host 2 Meteor instances. But that's actually wrong. You can actually, in fact, host 4 different Meteor instances running at the same time on 2 different CPUs. This is because modern CPUs are actually much powerful, more powerful than the old CPUs that this information was based upon. Modern CPUs can actually juggle between tasks really fast, therefore can actually drive more than you can throw at it. So basically, the rule of thumb is to monitor your application to see how it goes, but for many workloads, you can safely assume that a 4 gigabyte and a 2 CPU server can run 4 different instances for you at the same time. And the most beautiful thing about the Fusion Passenger, this is like a commercial for Fusion Passenger. I have to get paid about this. Sorry, guys. I really love that. The best part about using Fusion Passenger is you can use the same server to host different apps. For example, you have an admin app, and you have a front-end app, you have a mobile app, and you have a totally different application, totally unrelated. You can put all of them together on the same server. Just open up new paragraphs or configuration on the Fusion Passenger configuration file, on the same file, like different virtual hosts, and that's it. So it's even more powerful in that way because you can utilize, for example, one of the apps is used during daytime and the other app is used during nighttime, let's say. If you can put those two same apps on the same server, that means you can use the server around the clock. I love that approach, and that's why I am actually going with that. Plus, you can host different things as well. For example, you can host a WordPress PHP website along with your Meteor application on the same Fusion Passenger instance, because Fusion Passenger is basically Nginx plus a process management engine that processes all your Meteor applications, Ruby on Rails applications, or PHP applications all together and getting them to work together without any glitches. So that's it. So this is one option. Another option, without getting something like Fusion Passenger into the stack, you can go with MOP and Nginx. But that means you have to configure MOP for each deployment. I'm not exactly sure if you can deploy multiple applications with MOP on the same server. I frankly did not look that up because I have never needed that. But perhaps one of you guys, take a moment to check it out. But basically, you have to configure each app deployment with MAP plus an Nginx configuration in front of it separately. So that means you have to follow along standard Nginx reverse proxy configurations. A reverse proxy is, just to recap, is what takes the request from the outside world, from the internet, and points it toward the right Meteor instance within your server, or maybe different servers. So that's another solution. And finally, a solution again from Oronoda that resembles what Fusion Passenger provides is the cluster package. You can actually use cluster to deploy multiple instances of your application, and then have one of them act like Nginx. So if you use cluster, you will not have to use Nginx. Specifically, you can ask one of the Meteor instances using your cluster configuration file to act like the front-end server, which takes all your requests from the internet, from your visitors, and then distributes it back to your other instances or microservices, as Oronoda describes in his README. So before going on with the MongoDB configuration and putting that within the stack somewhere, I know this must have been a lot of information, what seems like 15 minutes. So I'd like to pause here for a moment and ask you guys if you have lost me somewhere.
So can I add a couple more?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Please go ahead.
So up until a few weeks ago, we were using something called MDM, which is Chris Wessel's. Let me just get the link for you.
Please.
But as I say, that was up until a few weeks ago. We've recently switched to using something called PM2, which actually sounds quite a lot like Fusion Passenger in terms.
Yeah, I know, I remember that.
So it lets you do things like set up multiple instances. It handles the automatic restarting of instances if they fail, does all the deployments for you. I would say that those two are also worth a look at, should you want a little more confusion in the mix.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Rob, for pointing that out, because I now remember that I did check out PM, a few years ago when I first started deploying my own Meteor applications, and around that time, PM used to have some problems with Meteor, or maybe the other way around. Meteor had some problems with PM, and I found Fusion Passenger having direct and official support for Meteor. So that was why I went with that, since I wanted to be easier. But nowadays, I know PM is actually a very powerful stack for hosting multiple Node.js applications or clustering Node.js applications natively. So it might be actually worth taking a look at that as well. And so thank you very much for pointing that out.
Okay.
So amidst of all these confusions, guys, where are you at? Does anyone say, okay, I have no clue what's going on here, or no?
I'm a bit confused about the Nginx. I mean, I've heard about load balancer and proxy servers before. I've heard those terms, but I never really got to understand it, because I mean, I'm used to deploying to Meteor, the free meteor.com tab, and I'm assuming that when you use Galaxy or similar products like DigitalOcean or whatever, I'm just gonna type in a line of code into my terminal and it's gonna upload it. And but where does Nginx comes into this play, and like other load balancers, and what's proxy servers?
Okay, let's start small. Let's forget about load balancing. Let's forget about multiple instances. Let's say you have a single Meteor application with a single instance running on port 3000. Okay? The keyword here is port 3000. This is one of the reasons you might want to use something like Nginx or any reverse proxy to listen on port 80, the standard port on the internet, and forward that request behind the scenes to port 3000, where Meteor application is actually listening on. So this is one of the reasons you might want to check that out. But you can actually run a Meteor application natively on port 80. That's also technically possible. So there's no need for Nginx there. But port 80 is a very special port on Linux systems. Linux says if you want to use a port with a number smaller than 1024, you have to be privileged. You have to be a root account. There are other solutions to that, of course, still on the OS level, but still running running a web server on port 80 requires the web server itself to be aware of the Linux environment and aware of its power that it has on that port. So, since Nginx is a de facto solution with awareness and with security-minded setup, we say, okay, you don't want to configure all our individual application servers for running on port 80. An application server is what it is, an application server. It doesn't have to be running on a web server's port. A web server is port 80. That's a nice mindset to separate concerns. An application server does application serving, and it can run on some other port, like 3000. Okay, that put aside, then you want to put something, a web server in between, to listen on port 80, the World Wide Web port, the de facto standard, and forward that to our backend servers. When we want to use multiple application servers so that we can scale, our front-end server will also be capable of forwarding those requests among other instances, so that sharing the load evenly. Is that, does that make a clearer picture now?
So basically, Nginx is one kind of proxy server.
Yeah, basically. It's actually a powerful web server, but we are using it for as a proxy. Plus, if you can configure it right, to also use it for serving static pages or assets like images, like videos. Node.js is not really very powerful for serving static assets, so using a web server that's built for doing that stuff is a better solution. So I like Fusion Passenger that way too, because Fusion Passenger is aware of where Meteor stores its static assets and automatically applies optimizations to that. And that's also done through Nginx, by the way.
So let's say DigitalOcean, can they not do this?
Sorry?
DigitalOcean, so they don't have these kind of features that you're talking about, like when you need to serve static files, they'll serve static files, and when you need to serve the application, they'll serve the application.
Well,
or let's say Galaxy, for example.
The DigitalOcean gives you a server. That's it. You decide what's going to be on that server. You have to install those applications one by one. You can use different stacks or different technologies to build up your best server to your specifications. But basically, you start off with an empty server, a Linux server that has nothing on it. So DigitalOcean does not provide you with anything. DigitalOcean provides you with a server that you can install stuff on. You have to install your web server, you have to install Meteor or Node.js on it, you have to install your Mongodb on it, and you have to install several other services that you want to use.
Do I have to install the operating system as well, or not just?
No, operating system comes built in. DigitalOcean, or any other cloud provider for that matter, like Amazon or Linode or any other one that competes, asks you this: what size of a server do you want, and what operating system do you want on it? Some of them even provide Windows solutions. Yep, that's right. Windows is now among the
I think when you Google DigitalOcean Meteor or deploy a DigitalOcean to Meteor, you find quite good tutorials to that already, I think.
Yes.
I don't know, I never did it, but...
Okay, well...
But there's one question, there's no solution for this to type just in the terminal, like deploy Meteor. There's no solution for that. That solution is Galaxy, right? If I understood it right.
Yes.
Okay.
The most straightforward solution is Galaxy. And then Runoda's cluster and MAP are also similarly straightforward.
Okay. But they don't have this load balancing and all the stuff for scaling up the app, right? This is what they not so great in analysis, right?
I didn't get that. I'm sorry.
I just said mob and all these easy solutions, they're not that great than your passenger, what you said, passenger, it was...
No, I cannot go that far. I mean, Fusion Passenger is my personal preference.
Okay.
Also, to back that up, if you have watched the latest Meteor Night videos, Classcraft had been using Fusion Passenger, for example.
Yeah, sure, right. I saw that. Yeah.
So it's not a toy. It's actually a powerful solution, and there are open source and enterprise versions to it. You should definitely check that out. But Runoda's MAP, I think, is the most widely used solution out there because it's really easy to use. You don't set up servers like you do with Fusion Passenger or anything else. It's almost as easy as Galaxy.
So it might even be easier. Might even be easier than Galaxy in some ways because Galaxy doesn't give you Mongo anymore, does it?
Oh yeah. Well, that's right. Galaxy does not provide a database instance, so that's something you have to get either on your own server or from a service provider like Compose.io. So since you mentioned that, I guess we could continue a little about discussing around our database hosting options and how we can host it ourselves versus other solutions. First of all, like Galaxy, the most straightforward way of hosting your database instance is a cloud provider, like or a dedicated service provider, like Compose.io. You go there, sign up for their solution, and you have to pay some money. But what you get is a database that's going to be robust, that's going to be backed up properly, that's going to be scaled up as you require it. So that's the easiest solution. But of course, anything easy and manageable and dependable comes at a cost. So if you guys are cost aware and want something less expensive or even free, you could go with self-deployment options. A self-deployment option is to install and manage your own MongoDB server somewhere, either on the same server as your Meteor server, or a dedicated server. Again, you get from DigitalOcean or AWS or something like that. If you want to use MAP, for example, MAP does that for you. It sets up your MongoDB, so you don't have to install anything. If you configure your MAP configuration file to also set up MongoDB for you, it does it. So there, that goes like, fire up the terminal, type in map deploy, and you have your Meteor instance deployed, you have your database deployed, and you have everything wired up together in a single box. That's perfectly easy and perfectly acceptable. So you should definitely know how to work with that, because somewhere along the line you're gonna need something like that. So go check that out.
So
something important to know about.
Sorry, one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you use MapX by Runoda, can you how many vendors can you use? You can use DigitalOcean, you can use, what other services can you use using MapX?
Anywhere, it doesn't matter. You can even use a separate server on your home that you can connect to the internet. It doesn't matter. You could use Amazon. You can use Linode. You can use DigitalOcean. What else is out there? Microsoft solution.
Azure, I think. I think it's called Azure. I've never
Oh
used
yeah,
it.
Azure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay.
So, but you can't use that obviously with Galaxy, because Galaxy you can use is with Galaxy you can use its own commands from the terminal, and obviously Galaxy doesn't host the database, right?
No, it doesn't host the database. If you want to use Galaxy, you have to also either host your database or use something like Compose.io or Mongodb, to get someone to host the database for you.
So it's just so let's say when you connect to Galaxy, right? You host your application there, and you host your database in somewhere, let's say Compose.io. You just connect them together, right? Like a configuration.
Yeah,
Is that it?
the basic configuration is any Meteor application asks for a MongoDB URL environment option. You have to provide it. That's a given. So when you're deploying a Meteor application, you just set that URL wherever it is that you're hosting your database.
Oh.
By the way, guys, could someone pull up Josh Owens's latest blog post, because he has done an excellent job about describing a self-hosted, similarly Galaxy similar setup using MAP and all these. That's a great blog post. You should definitely read that.
From who is this?
So if someone can, go check out Josh Owens's website in the meantime and share that URL here, that would be great. So about MongoDB deployment options. The thing is, MongoDB is a first-class citizen in the cloud world. Therefore, all these cloud hosting providers, including DigitalOcean, including Amazon, including Azure, they have pre-configured servers just for hosting MongoDB. So what you do is basically, I want a server, I want that to be running a MongoDB, click, I want it this big, click, next, and in a few seconds you have a server dedicated to MongoDB. So I think you should, if you don't know how to manage your MongoDB instances, if you don't have a database management background or DevOps background, I suggest instead of installing and configuring MongoDB from scratch, I suggest you use one of those pre-configured instances. Okay? So whichever cloud provider you are used to using, go check their options. They have already, Amazon calls these machine images. DigitalOcean calls these one-click installs, I think, something like that. There is also a provider called Bitnami. I'll actually share the URL with you. Bitnami has lots of predefined stacks. Okay, so I'll post the URL here. This is a great place to find some new stacks, and you can use that. But if you want to, just pull the wires and reconnect them as you wish, if you have some specific requirements, because MongoDB is a very very powerful database. It has really different deployment setups. You can distribute MongoDB databases horizontally. You can use the same server to again mimic that kind of the same distribution. You can shard them, divide some data on some server and some on another server, etc. So there are lots of different MongoDB deployment options. You can easily play around with that. Installing MongoDB is as simple as, if you're using Debian or Ubuntu-based OS, it's like sudo apt-get install MongoDB, and that's going to be like a minute tops, and then you're going to have your MongoDB instance there running and waiting for you. But then you have to do configurations, and the most important configuration you will have to do is setting up your oplog environment. What oplog is, that tells Meteor servers in real time what has happened in the database or on other Meteor instances. So to set that up, you have to actually set up a primary and secondary instances. So you have to set up database replication on Mongodb. And if you have not worked with replica sets on MongoDB before, managing them can be confusing because you have to be, connected to a primary to do some of the stuff, and you have to be connected to a replica set, a secondary, or an arbiter. There are like different tasks that a MongoDB instance can get. It can be a master server that your Meteor is going to ask the data for. It can be a backup. It can be a hot backup. It can be a server that says, here are the data pieces, guys. That's called an arbiter. So it can become really complicated quite soon. So specifically for MongoDB, if you are going for something like a mock deployment, it's already built in. That's going to do it for you. You're not going to do anything. But if you want a more powerful, a dedicated MongoDB instance, you should go with one of those one-click installs, pre-configured images from your cloud provider. And if you do know your stuff, you could play around with MongoDB. But in case you're getting that big, your application is growing that big, I'd really suggest to put your data where you can actually trust, when you go to sleep at night. And that will be somewhere like Compose.io or Mongodb or one of those. Because, you can lose a Meteor application or, crash a server and then fire another one up. But if you lose your data, that's going to suck. You're not going to want that. Okay. So we're almost more than half an hour in. Would you guys like to discuss more on this topic, or switch over to something else that we'd like to discuss?
I would be interested in how important stuff like Wired Tiger it really is.
Oh, okay. It is actually quite important because it compresses your data. So the amount of space your data occupies on the server gets really small. And in MongoDB world, the data is better be on the RAM, not on the disk. I mean, it is eventually going to end up on the disk, but if the data fits on your RAM, it's going to be blazingly fast. And also, on your server side, if the data is going to really grow, like you're going to collect millions and millions of data points from your visitors, it's gonna reach the size of terabytes. SSD disks are really important. After RAM, SSD is an important asset to your server. But if you have like terabytes of data, you're not gonna find such large SSD disks cheap for little amounts of money. So what you want to do is compress that data so that you could continue using SSD. So Wired Tiger, in that sense, is important. But if you're talking about small applications and we really don't care about how much the data grows, the potential benefits you're gonna get from using Wired Tiger as an engine is not really that noticeable for you. For example, I have some applications out there running in production that are not using the Wired Tiger storage engine because I saw no benefit from that and I didn't just care. That was it.
So we did some tests comparing the performance of Wired Tiger with the standard memory management stuff for normal Mongo, and for our application we found Wired Tiger to be slower, which was quite a surprise. Not hugely slower, but slower.
All right. Well, maybe that compression comes at a cost, right?
Well, there's a lot of talk about Wired Tiger being faster.
Yeah.
So, as I say, it came as a surprise.
Well, the thing is, I mean, anything on this deployment world actually is a surprise because I've yet to see any benchmark about any technology there to hold up for my use case.
Well, yes, always do your own benchmarks with your data.
Exactly. So that's a word of wisdom, guys. Remember that. All right then. Should we move on?
About this topic, just to add, I made this university, MongoDB University, and the courses are quite well, and they also cover Wild Tiger, like 1 week, and they explain the differences and everything. So if you want to go deeper in that, I think the university is quite well. Yeah. I posted the link up there. There's also advanced courses, so I started with the beginner course. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, actually, that's a quite good advice. You know, putting MongoDB deployments aside, even learning the best syntax, or even learning how to structure your data, how to query for your data, is a really important thing to know.
Yeah, indexes, for example.
So, you know, attending a MongoDB University class online and trying to familiarize yourself with the inner workings of document structuring and querying.
Because I think the Meteor documents are quite well, but if you really go deep into MongoDB, you understand quite a lot about the data structure, and the courses are really well structured. So it takes like 7 weeks, and every week you have like 5 hours of videos, and you have also a certificate at the end. So you have to make real tests and everything, and it's completely for free. So I can really recommend it. Yeah.
It's like
I did it in October last year, so it's really great.
Well, guys, I'd really check that out if I were you, because that's really going to boost your development skills. Because in the end, if you're not developing things like games or things like UI heavy stuff, we're basically working with data. We're basically trying to get data from a user and put it somewhere on the server in the best fashion that it's going to benefit your users and the overall application environment in terms of performance and, you know, flexibility, etc. And you convert that data into knowledge, into information, into interactions. So knowing how to handle your data is actually the most important thing in programming. I believe so. Okay. So moving on, we have something like, you know, 15 to 20 minutes tops. So we decided that we might want to take a look at some code from Chris, and, you know, discuss that code, and, you know,
we can do that also next week if you want, and we can discuss the task for what we want to code together. Maybe, I don't know. I want 1 week more. I think this is like some beginner questions, and I think I can figure it out by myself, to be honest.
Well, if there's something
if it's okay for you, I mean,
on your own, you should do that, man. Come on.
Yeah. So you want to see it or what?
Well, what do you guys say?
What were you working on? Did you say like you wanted to do some kind of chat?
Yeah, right. So right now, okay, my problem is the following. So I think I can figure it out by myself. So I'm using the collection 2 and the auto form thing. And I worked now around, how to say, I built a form, and this form submits data to the MongoDB, that works, and I can display the data. But I have already data from the accounts collection, because the people sign in, and this is not an auto form. And now I want to display the data from the accounts collection, and not from the auto form in the end. So
I built a collection.
Yeah, the users collection, right?
Yeah.
So and now I built a workaround where I use the auto form thing and the nice shortcodes of the auto form, and it looks cool. But I couldn't figure out how I can now show the MongoDB data without the auto form in the end. And
let's see the code, man. It's easier. Let's see the code.
Yeah. So that's why I think let me figure it out myself, because I'm a bit shy. So let me do it myself, guys. So
okay,
yeah.
that's
but it's like I think I'm maybe the most like the less experienced guy here in this group. So I maybe have this questions. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can do this, Chris. If you like, let's say if you cannot solve it by Tuesday, share some of that code with us, and let's discuss it on the Slack channel, okay?
Okay, we do that, yeah. Cool.
Okay. Lucas, you wanted to share some code with us?
If you want to, I can share the MQTT stuff we discussed about in the Slack channel.
Okay, let's go ahead with that.
So there's the code on GitHub.
Oh, can you share your desktop so the viewers can
I'm
also
sure if you explain me how.
on the left side, there's a
Green button.
menu.
The green button, okay. Okay, then I switched. I hope this was the right one, or can you see my coding ID?
Yeah, it's coming through.
Or can I just share my whole desktop? Yeah, desktop. There it is. Yeah. So I just stop that. Yeah, as I said, the application is about a bunch of BeagleBones which are behind the VPN, and the current state of the art is like we go per remote to each of the BeagleBones and display their status and the events they fire. And it's actually a kind of bad approach because we have like 50 BeagleBones, and it will get more and more. And so we have to log on every one of them, yeah, by remote. So the approach I've taken to the Slack discussion was to use MQTT, and I have a Java applet on the BeagleBones which publish their actual status to the MQTT channel on my Mosquito server. And then I have a Meteor application on the Mosquito server, which is subscribed to this Mosquito channels. And I used I think it's called.
Last week,
I used
you told me about the package.
Excuse me. But I used the MQTT collection package. And what I did now is have a server script. There's a lot of noise in the channel. I have a server script which has this MQTT connections to the to my server. The server is stored in my settings JSON. And then it listens to the BeagleBone/plus channel, and this package works like it's just does upserts on BeagleBone/something channels, and inserts on topics which are marked with info warning or error. So I have a log stream, and I have this real-time connections from the BeagleBone. So if I run my spam script, I can see in live updates which event is currently triggered on which BeagleBone. So, but the problem now is that I have like events in a rate of 10 hertz on the BeagleBones. So if I get a lot of data, I have like 10 times per second. I have an update on this, and that's pretty much. So I think the first way to optimize this is to have like 2 updates per second at most. But I don't really know how to do it because I don't want to do it on the BeagleBone side. I think it's good to just I don't really want to change the Java code, so I just fire every event, but I don't want the update frequency on this application.
Have you heard about tracker non-reactive?
No, not really.
Okay. Well, that's actually what you want to look up, because normally, by its standard, everything is reactive in Meteor world. So if data is coming through, it's going to come through to all the connected clients. And it's happening, very frequently, and for a lot of record set, like the one you have on your screen there, like 20 records, 20 lines, all getting up new data 10 times a second, then it's a problem. So what you want to do is disable reactivity. And disabling reactivity can be explicitly done on your queries and on your tracker dependencies. So what you should do is search the Meteor documentation for the keyword non-reactive.
Mm-hmm.
And there are two great examples there. One of them is what you pass on to your queries, and the second one is about the tracker, if you want to update the screen or not. Currently, working on the query is fine for you. And when you want to fine-tune it, then you can work on updating the screen. But with that, you should also, since now it has become non-reactive, you have to find a way to update it, on some intervals, so that you see refreshed data, and that you have to also apply manually using either a timer, like Meteor, Meteor's own time, one of those timers, or generator. No, yeah, that's actually the only option.
Could I not simply like do the publish on server non-reactive and set a vanilla JavaScript set timeout and trigger every I don't know.
Yes, set a set interval, not a set timeout. Set a set interval, but don't use a vanilla JavaScript set interval. Use Meteor's set interval, because Meteor set interval provides some utilities. It's a wrapper around standard interval and timeout.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know there is something like set interval. Okay.
Okay, so basically you should try this. Make your queries non-reactive, so you send the data, but the client has to ask for it again and again and again. So the way to do that is using an interval. Try this setup, and if you ever get stuck somewhere, about delivering the updated data, then come back with a question and discuss more on that.
Okay.
Would this solve your problem, you think?
Yeah, I wasn't really in a problem right now, but it was just a topic which came to my mind.
Okay.
But I think it's a good solution to have like an interval and not publish everything I get, because they're
Furthermore, actually, publishing the smallest amount of data as possible is also a great solution. For example, your BeagleBones are sending lots of messages somewhere to your MQTT server, and then you're getting those and upsorting some of them, or inserting some of them into your collections. But the thing is, those collections carry a lot of information around each document. And on the client, on the user interface, you're not actually showing up everything, right? You are showing some parts of that information. So on your publish function, just publish those fields. There's a fields option.
No, I show everything on the client. Actually, I show everything, but I don't want to show any absurd, every absurd. I don't need all of them, but I have like one document per BeagleBone, and every BeagleBone like updates itself. So there's not a lot of data in the database, but I think this set interval probably will work.
Okay, then go with the solution we've discussed and see if that works for you.
Okay, thank you.
So what will you do with the missing data? Because if your BeagleBone is sending 10 per second and you're choosing to only display 2 per second, what do you do with the rest? What do you decide what should be displayed?
Actually, we have like a Java application which is wired to actually this remote stream. I think I will change it to the MQTT stream. And this Java application actually displays in real time what's going on the BeagleBone. So they're like up to 100 and more sensors per BeagleBone collected and connected, and they all collect data and with like an analyzer which analyzes this data, and the designer which displays the data. But with the actual setup, we have to connect to every single BeagleBone and look at the designer. And the idea is to have this global interface where we can see the status of all BeagleBones, and then click on one BeagleBone, and there we have the same thing we actually do in Java right now, but in JavaScript, and then we need all the updates.
Okay.
It actually sounds a lot of interesting things to do there. So let us know how it goes, okay? Because this is an application use case for Meteor. You know, people are using it mostly for MVP and stuff, but using it with the Internet of Things is actually the way forward. So what you're doing is might actually be an inspiration to a lot of people.
Yeah, actually, I'm already writing a Medium post.
Great. All right then. Okay, I think we're around our 1 hour mark right now. I personally have a few more minutes if you'd like to, add something or ask anything else. So, if anyone has something in their mind that they would like to share, just shoot.
If nobody has a question, I'll ask. But if someone else has a question, I won't.
Go for it.
Just do it.
All right. About analytics, Rob was talking about using Astronomer.io and Mixpanel. There's so many options out there, like Kissmetrics, ClickTed, Clicky. In the Astronomer.io page itself, they list at least, I think, 20.
I think it's more than 20 services now. I think it's more than 20 now. It's probably going on somewhere between 30 and 40, I would think. I can't remember all of them, but there are a lot. And it is just so convenient to just install one package and then choose, using a cloud service, who you want to send the data to. And of course, you can send it to more than one. So if you want to do conventional type analytics, you could send it to Google and or Mixpanel, or you could go to one of these other providers which do completely different things with your data and send it to them as well. So and lots of those have free tiers, so you can get into it and decide what's good for you without actually spending any money, which for me is absolutely great, because it's something that we are experimenting with ourselves at the moment. What analytics platform should we use? We've focused on Mixpanel. It's similar to Google Analytics. It's a little different. It lets us track people rather than groups, which is great for us. We've got a fairly small user base, so we're quite keen on being able to know what person X has done, rather than 30% of people did this. We want to look at each individual person, and it's great for that.
I'd like to add something there. Although Google Analytics is really powerful, their keen interest is not on direct live website interaction. They're mostly interested on displaying data, or handling data about visits. So they have recently, for the past 1 or 2 years, started integrating more live updates to their infrastructure. But they even used to have hard limits on how much data one single user in one single session can generate. I don't know, they still have that right now, but for example, if you wanted to create 500 data points in a single user session, they just did not allow that. They hadn't allowed it by then. This is something like last year, I guess. So I haven't checked very recently, but that's when I hit when it hit me. Google doesn't yet want to be the go-to solution for that kind of analytics, and Mixpanel there is actually a great solution that fills the gap.
Also one of the most used packages on Atmosphere right now this week.
Right.
So I have one last question. So obviously there are a lot of options and to choose from, and you could use the free trials, and I plan to do the same. Hopefully, is there anything, any services that let you know that your user is online now? Because there is a chat application, chat service, I have to say, called Chatra. Do you know about it? I'll try to post the link. It's made with Meteor, and it lets you talk with your clients real time, and you can also see what your clients are trying to type before they press the enter button. It's quite great actually. It's really cheap, like something like $7 per month, I think. Yeah, it's made with Meteor. That's the best stuff about it. So I was thinking, if there is any kind of service like that lets you know that you have a user on your website, and then it hits the button like ping, you have a user, and then you go and try to chat with him and try to engage him, like if he needs any help or anything. Is there any services like that? Let me post it here.
I don't know.
Me neither. I think there are few services out there that provide real-time customer support, online customer support, for websites, especially for marketing and trying to sell stuff while the visitor is right there. I haven't used anything specifically for that matter. I know I'm aware of their existence, but I'm sorry.
All right.
Yeah, but you could actually implement something like that on your own, by the way, on your own, because
really?
you could implement something similar on your own application, because it's really easy for you to share online presence information, and it's really easy for you to log keystrokes. But I think that's kind of intrusive. I don't know. And since Meteor is a connected application environment, you could mimic that same feature set in a basic environment, and try that for your app.
All right.
You don't want to pay for those services. You don't want to land that data outside.
All right. Thanks.
Okay.
I would have one last question about Tracker, if possible.
Okay, sure.
So when I have a collection which stores like a title and a message, and I subscribe to this collection, and something changes, I get the new post. I think it's based on a hash or something like this. But when I, for example, just subscribe to the title and the message changes, do you also get a redraw in Tracker, or is it like intelligent enough to know that none of the important stuff has changed?
Okay. It is actually quite intelligent in that way, and now I'm going to share with you a URL. Tracker manual. Unfortunately, Meteor's documentation is a little scattered around the place, so there are great pieces of information out there, but it may sometimes be hard to find all of them. One piece of gem is Meteor's tracker, and I'm going to share the manual right now with you. It's actually on GitHub. It's on the wiki. That's why you may not have been able to find it. Okay, here's the link. Okay, I posted the link on the chat. It basically tells you how fine-grained reactivity and tracker dependencies work. It tells you if you use the fields option, how it affects your subscriptions or tracker dependencies, or if you use specific find queries instead of just find all kind of non-selected queries, how that depends on the query parameters, etc. And basically, the quick answer to your question is, yeah, it is actually intelligent, to figure out what you have asked for and what has changed. And if you haven't asked for some piece of information and that has changed, it doesn't bother you with, hey, look, there is something here going on and you don't even care about. It doesn't do that. But you still have to go through that tracker manual because it tells you how that stuff works and how it can come and bite you in the ass, by the way. Because sometimes you want to be able to detecting all those changes that you're not even showing to the user. Maybe you somehow depend on it for something else. So just check it out. It might be a little confusing the first time you read it, but after the second read, it's going to be clear. And then if you have a specific, what happens if we do this and then next do that kind of question, come share it on the Slack channel.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we should wrap up, and I'd like to thank Rob once more for joining us. It's really great having you as one of our mentors here. We really like picking your brains.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, let's take this week working on our project and start building up our feature list, and then finally decide what we're going to build, okay? I see that everyone's anxious, and you're right, time is passing by. It's been about 2-3 weeks right now, so we have to feature freeze, or if we cannot come up with a complete feature set, we should at least pick part of it and start developing on it, and that's going to help us more than these sessions are helping us, okay? So let's take this week on the Slack channel to be a little more active and decide on that. Okay. Yeah, I have joined the trail about it. Okay, cool. So one of you guys should definitely do the blog post now. Okay.
I did it already, guys. So.
Oh. Wow. Okay. Somebody else.
That's why I'm looking over to the right. I make notes.
There's somebody else do some another blog post about something else. Maybe something on MQTT, right?
Yeah, I do a follow-up.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. That would be really great. Okay then, guys. So thanks for joining in. See you next week. Of course, in the meantime on Slack. And yeah, we're picking up. Cool. See you.
Okay.
Guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.